Tell me about going to agencies with a acting resume that you completely made up.
I got kicked out of my house in Santa Barbara.
And what do you mean kicked out?
I was kicked out. My mom said leave.
Why?
Because I don't blame her. I mean, I said some things. She had been out the night before, and I said some things to her that were inappropriate, and she said, get out. So I got in my car. I cried on my way down to LA. My dad was living in an apartment with the girl he was seeing that became his wife later. So I stayed on that couch for a couple months, and I just tried to turn things around. It was just Cito rats, and things were kind of going downhill. So I hadn't gone to high school. I think I'd missed 38 out of 58 days of school. So I stopped going. And then I got down there and I was like, okay. And I started martial arts again. And my dad's like, why don't you try your hand at this acting thing if you liked it, what you did, the whole improvisation thing and that story. So I was like, yeah, I was just doing anything to try and get kind of a leg up. And so I had created a whole resume, There's a theater in Santa Barbara called the Librero Theater that I remember driving by. I never went in, but I drove by and I remember seeing Librero. So I'd say like, As You Like It. I did As You Like It at the International Librero Theater in Rome. Some I don't know, I just wrote a bunch of stuff. It was 100% false. And then they would ask me, because I read the plays, and they would ask me like, how was playing, Stanley in Streetcar? Really good. Super good. Like really amazing experience that I had, a lot. It was in a town that, doesn't exist. But, I would go into these kind of improvisational riffs. I was good at bullshit then.
And it didn't work with most agencies, but
All
it eventually
agencies.
Didn't somebody
Yeah,
say
but Hillary Shore from Leading Artists, I'm sure saw right through it, but liked me for whatever reason. And then took me on, and I had to ask for money from her to get out of the parking lot because it was in Beverly Hills. It was like a $20 whatever, and I didn't have the $20. And I was always, they were like, oh, didn't you have a dad who had money and all that? But I was always very weary of money.
Your dad said last night, he's like, Josh has never asked me for
Ever.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like being on the hook like that, I'm going to ask for $5 and somebody offers you 20. I just feel like there's some manipulative something going on there. I want to earn my buck, know that I've earned my buck.
So you said there was never a plan. Maybe that was the problem. I never devised a plan for work, for life, or to be the best at anything. I was a wanderer. The pros and cons of that in your mind are what?
I think it allowed me to experience a childhood and a life that was interesting, given the times. I didn't have that thing, maybe I went against it or whatever, of like, what do you aspire to be? It just wasn't in the consciousness. It just wasn't, none of us were gonna make it. And it sounds so morbid and all that, but most of those guys didn't make it. Most of those guys died. There was something about the way that we were living in the extremes that we were living in that didn't suggest future. It was a rebellion with no ceiling. It was just reaction.